Make we model them up with the PDP thing. I think
that's one, but I mean, OEG might have another suggestion.
No, nothing there. Me, I just, I didn't know say the thing was still brew like swell up like that because now Nicki Minaj don't enter everybody.
Nicki Minaj.
She don't enter. They don't interview foreign secretaries. The thing is, all these people want to do something. These people want to do something. I don't know what they want to do, but they want to do something. I don't know what they want to do.
Something must happen.
Something must happen.
Yeah. But some people then wonder whether this something is purely diplomatic, as in whether it's going to be like, hey, look, give us Nasarawa state for mining purposes.
the guy cry out.
he spoke passionately.
You get our attention, then it's getting and how fast it is spinning, right? Something go up.
No, I mean let's get right into it. Just in the past week or so, the discussion about the US taking some action against Christian killers in Nigeria has not died down. In fact, it's intensified. In some ways, it appears to have been intensified. So I think we should revisit the conversation. Of course, we had a preliminary discussion about it prior to Trump's initial announcement. But now in the wake of Trump's announcement, the discussion seems to have taken on a new life. So let's revisit it now and kind of take the temperature in light of the recent developments. What do you think? Does that make sense, fellas? And then if it does, what has been the most striking aspect of this to you in the past few days and weeks? Well, you feel that something must happen. I mean, why? What makes you say that with such confidence?
Yeah, I think it's just the speed, with and at which things are kicking off, the kind of airtime it is getting. And it is very similar to things we see when you're about to get action in other countries that, all around the world with this invasion thing, sanctions, warfare that you get. It takes or follows this pathway where there's so much media attention, it is escalated, then, just like shaping and molding general consensus or consent before, going into those countries or having some sort of executive action inside of this country. So with the ramping up of airtime involving celebrities like Nicki Minaj, and
what's the point of that?
And CNN, all this,
But hang on. I mean, okay, Nicki Minaj, yes, she is famous. She might not be as popular as she used to be, but she has achieved a lot in the rap game. I don't know that she's achieved that much in geopolitics or in American foreign policy. So, I mean, it can be argued that the Nicki Minaj statement or Nicki Minaj's entry into the discussion signals its high point. Maybe this is the intervention. Maybe the whole aim was to get Nicki Minaj to speak up. And now that she's, I mean, I say that jokingly, but, the more serious point to make would be to say, there's been this whole critique of Trumpian bluster that even has its own acronym now, TACO. Trump always chickens out. That suggests that
TACO.
Which he hates. I think The Economist came up with it, or Financial Times. And of course, the claim there is that he comes out blustering, promises swift, immediate action, and then ultimately backs away Evidence of this includes his 160% tariff on China, which of course has now been withdrawn, etc., etc. He's going to invade New York. He's not invaded New York, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, from that standpoint, he's going to build a wall. There's still no wall. It could look like this is just another tackle moment. Yes, I mean, on those previous issues, Nicki Minaj didn't intervene, but I don't, I don't know if this then marks a tipping point. I mean, and it might, but I just raised that as a counter argument to say, hang on, isn't there this other perspective? I mean, which is a perspective I'm sure you've considered. So, if despite that you still think something is going to happen, I'm curious as to why.
Yeah. These ones that you mentioned are with fairly strong countries or internal politics. So considering African or a country in Africa or countries that you might actually really bully and have the capability to bully, something might happen.
Right.
So the internal one with China, the internal one with like invading New York, I'll see that self-inflicted injury if you say you're going to attack or invade New York or bring like this, what they call them, army or anything to New York, or you want to go
National Guard
with China, anything, anyhow you want to play, China is ready. Do it nuclear, we all go in there. Do it economically, we're going there. Anyhow they want to play it, so you better chicken out. That's it with all those countries. But with Africa that you can push around and small countries, you can flex your muscle and maybe even get away with it. So that's why I'm sort of scared that something might happen with countries that, you can bully, push around, and it will not seem like, you can get hit back.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? So that's why I'm on that side.
Yeah, Mega, what do you think of this?
I mean, first thing, why would, I mean, just out of curiosity, why didn't Trump say, what's in New York do up?
He had this whole, one of the weeks in the media cycle he dedicated to talking about how the cities run by Democrats are crime infested. And so his solution was that he's going to send the National Guard, or is it the Marines? And they did this in D.C. As a matter of fact, there was some deployment of some U.S. security agency to the streets of D.C., ostensibly to reduce crime. He really doesn't like the mayor of D.C., who's Democrat. So there were threats that the same thing would happen in Chicago and I think New York. But there was no follow-through.
Okay.
So that's one example. But, I raised it just to point to what some have identified as a more general trend whereby...
yeah, I mean, the point that you raise it to make is a valid one. But I think that we can raise that point and still say that, recruiting Nicki Minaj. I mean, there's no way I don't think that there's any way that, however you cut and dice it, I think it's a joke. I mean, I don't know how else you want to rationalize that. But that's something that you've come to expect of Trump. Maybe something that you can ascribe to the Trumpian joke.
Although, sorry, mind you, it's possible that Nicki Minaj volunteered, that she just jumped in on her own accord. So,
regardless.
Yeah, right. Of course, they still welcomed it.
As in, to talk what? To say, what's, anyway. But I mean, I think, so I think let's to stick to what is probably the more important point, I think, I think sometimes when he does this, when he has this tackle moment, I think that, the impulse, I suspect usually stems from wanting to make a deal. I mean,
Right.
I think I think essentially you need to try as much as you can. And I'm not saying it's easy to try and get it into his head. And try to understand his worldview. I think he I mean, that's why the tools in his toolkit is usually tariff, because he thinks that you can make a deal, you can always. So I think there's a chance, a slim chance that there's a deal that he's looking to want to broker down the line.
Right.
But and all those blusters, to seem to have, because I mean, you listen to him when he even when he tries to broker peace deals between Ukraine and so you're the small guy in the room. You have no leverage. So we're trying to help you.
Right. He said to Zelensky. I mean, the Ukraine example is even one of the key examples.
Yeah. So, I mean, while this is me getting ahead of myself and trying to see where this might just be going, I also hope for the life of me that we don't get to that point, because I don't even think that we have a kind of president who is best placed to go into those kinds of negotiations. But I'll leave the details of why for later. I mean,
that's interesting. So you're saying that, look, even if Trump is trying to basically threaten invasion as a way to secure a deal, Tinubu can't give a deal. So in that case, I mean, are you suggesting then that, like OEG, that some kind of military action or U.S. unilateral action is likely? Because I mean, look,
I'm not saying that Tinubu can't give a deal. I'm just saying that Tinubu can't cut a deal that will be in the best interest of Nigeria, because Trump is not in the habit of leaving anything on the table. So I don't see how, because any deal if that's where we're going, if Trump is looking for a deal, the kind of deal he's looking for is not a deal that favors Nigeria. Otherwise, he will be coming.
No. I mean, I don't think we've even really come to the question of what favors Nigeria or doesn't. I mean, I don't think any of this, you know what I'm saying? I don't think any of this favors Nigeria. I think it's mostly a question of, like, will the US intervene or not? And, in some way, and I guess, I don't know. I mean, OG seems to be quite worried that it might happen. And, I mean, we haven't heard where you stand on that, basically. Like, do you think it might happen?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know whether it will happen. Whether it will happen depends on how the Nigerian government, tidies its own, does whatever it does in terms of housekeeping.
Right.
Which is why watching or seeing clips of the foreign minister going head to head with some former Canadian lawmaker, I guess, on what's this guy name? On Piers Morgan's podcast. Isn't good for me. It isn't good look. So that gives you a sense of where we are. So I mean, to answer that question, I don't know. What I do know is that whatever happens, will have to be a function of how Nigeria, the Nigerian government handles the matter. And so far, I don't even think they have their thinking caps on, because if the foreign minister's outing is anything to go by, I think that they think they can confront these guys, for whatever reason. But yeah, that's where I stand. Yeah,
Okay,
that's
can you clarify what happened with the foreign minister interview briefly? I mean, before we leave the subject, I mean, just because people might be listening who didn't watch it. So you seem to be suggesting the foreign minister did a very bad job, or it was very uncompelling. Nigerian foreign minister in the interview with Piers Morgan. So, but yeah, what did he? What was his main line of argument?
so because I haven't seen the entire or listened to the entire podcast, and I don't even know if I will. I've just seen short clips of the altercation that he's had, even with Piers Morgan on Piers Morgan's own show. You can see that he wants to be confrontational, or I don't even know if he was pushed to being confrontational. And up to the point where it's a shouting contest, So, I mean, and this is coming from people whose response to these allegations, whether false or however false the allegations are, is that they framed it as a PR problem,
Right.
And because they framed it as a PR problem, this then informs why that kind of outing, is noteworthy. Because if it's a PR role that you're engaging in, you're losing, because even your own people are beginning to question some of the stats that you've reeled out, on the show. So that, I guess what I'm saying is, based on how we've decided, and this framing of the issue, as one that is a PR one, goes a long way to tell you how the guys in government think. So rather than sort your problems back home and fix insecurity, you want to go and prove to people where they their own, say they don't know anything that they talk. How is that what's most important? So that's how I see. That's the point that that I'm trying to make here.
Yeah, fair enough. And let's come back to the Nigerian government's response, because you're right, it merits attention for its own seriousness. But I think it's worth zooming out a bit, as we think about the prospects of the U.S. intervention. It's worth zooming out, I think, to consider the recent history of U.S. foreign policy in Nigeria and, the sort of U.S.-Trump relationship, U.S. Tinubu relationship. Maybe that might give us some steer as to where things are likely to go. Because from my point of view, it would seem like Tinubu is precisely the best kind of guy to have in power if the U.S. wanted to have its way with Nigeria. In the sense that at no point has Tinubu come out trying to seem like an anti-imperialist, anti-colonial African statesman, right? I think he, if anything, his critics were pointing out prior to this moment that Tinubu is a Western stooge, to say the least. Some go as far as saying he's a CIA asset. So if that's the guy we have in office, then can't the US get whatever it wants in this country? Or at least try to, from the point of view of the executive power in Nigeria. And if it can, then why the announcement of an invasion? Like, why not just call your guy and say, hey, look, this is what we want, and he just signs the dotted line and you move on. So, look, I'm aware that these are now force us to go into the realm of assumptions, some speculation, and conjecture. But we do have some insight, so it can, I think, be informed conjecture, at least based on what we've seen happen so far in U.S.-Nigeria relationship in the recent past. So, Oji, what do you think about that? The guy in office, at the very least, is very friendly to U.S. interests at the moment. So why the need for the loudmouthed kind of approach? Why not just call Tinubu to handle what you need him to handle? Get you what you need from the market.
I just feel that there are a lot of interests at play, and these interests maybe not clearly defined, but I don't know what it is that they're aiming for or what the agenda fully is going to be. But what I'm more concerned, like I would like to be in the realm of like, let's look back inwards and, fix these issues so that we don't then allow cracks for outsiders and maybe foreign interests or people that have their own personal or hidden agenda to come and mess things up. Because from the look of things, I used to think it was going to be an internal problem, that was going to cause Nigeria, well, which it is anyway, but the explosive aspect of it, which is seeming like an external invasion, might be what will then tear the country apart. Because once that happens, a lot of fissures or cracks would burst open. So I don't know for sure, or I can't say because I don't want to just whip things up. But what I just feel that it might happen is if this invasion occurs, it will push Nigeria to a point where it's not going to be possible to come back from, then what we have as Nigeria might not exist anymore because there are a lot of cracks already in the structure of the country. And there might just be some interest groups just wanting to accelerate that. Maybe going back to the realm of conjecture and
right.
So if we accelerate it, if there's some sort of war or invasion that shakes the country to its fundamentals, then we're going to start seeing some things take the fall, get on the front stage where a need for rearrangement of the country would, come through.
No, but OJ, I think we're jumping the gun a little bit there because I don't know that we've definitively made the case why an invasion of some sort is likely. I mean, it could just be noise, right?
It could be noise. It could be signaling to, just get the country to put its things in order. That's why I said there are a lot of things, or a lot of factors going into this. It could be foreign interest groups trying to maybe reassert dominance. From Tinubu's standpoint, when it comes to the economics, like you said, he's very friendly to foreign investors. So I don't see any reason like that. So which gives then to maybe much, in quote, darker players inside of this geopolitical arena. Do you want to split the country up? Do you want to work on ethnic tensions? Do you want to keep the chaos going on so that whatever illegal things you're doing can continue? A lot of things to come up with in the religious aspect of the country. Do we have like Islamic vassals? Are these really things going on? Could it be that it's moneyed interests, weapons contracts, all these things that we need to lay on the table? Because these things that we mentioned, they become factors to look at when we are making our own conjectures. Okay, are there interests that have been, maybe blocked or stopped that want to then go through this route to push for maybe an invasion or do some sort of signaling for the country to get its acts right when it comes to, these things that we mentioned. So these are a lot of things. Since there's really the objective posturing of the government is that he's friendly to, foreign investors, stock market, all that, then we now have to start looking at other players, which might put us in that realm, so that's what
but listen, I mean, there have been some moments when, despite Tinubu's overall friendliness to Western interests. There have been some moments where his government has said no to the US. And I mean, I think it's worth putting those in perspective. So one was, of course, the request by the Trump administration, Venezuelan prisoners or deportees to Africa. And some African countries accepted the request. Nigeria did not. And in fact, Nigeria's foreign minister at that time came out with some, at the time funny, but also a bit ridiculous statement quoting, was it Flavor Flav?
At that time?
Yeah.
This same guy?
The statement he made at that time was quoting Flavor Flav, talking about we got our own problems or something of the sort. Whatever the case, very fairly, he pointed out that Nigeria was not in the mood to accept or willing to accept US deportees. And then, of course, you're right to mention the ECOWAS thing, because it appeared from a distance like it would have been in the US interest for ECOWAS to enforce its threat of invading Nigeria when there was a coup in Nigeria and the democratically elected, in quotes, president was removed. Because, of course, the US maintains a military base in Nigeria, and it's a military base that the US has now had to not only lose, but turn over to Russia, if I'm understanding the developments since that coup correctly. So Nigeria, at the head of ECOWAS, having threatened to invade and then not done that, could have seen, from the US perspective, as having failed. I could have seen as a failure on Nigeria's part, and Tinubu's part in particular.
In the lighter note, I've seen a video where, I've seen a video where Tinubu was like, I think he was talking about industrialization and agriculture, and he was like, I don't care what Trump, blah, blah, blah. It was just like frontal assault,
No, that's true. He's like basically saying, if we can produce things domestically, then whatever Trump is doing over there,
it won't
impact us. So you can see that in terms of messaging, even if Nigeria, broadly speaking, is welcoming, it has a welcoming attitude towards Western interests, it appears like there's some fissures with the Tinubu group and the Trump folks. At least things haven't gone perfectly smoothly. So could this just be an attempt to rebalance the relationship, get people talking again? I mean, get Nigeria to fall in line properly, or I mean, do you? Yeah, I mean, if someone is to push that argument as a counter argument to the risk of invasion, I mean, what would be your response to that? Like, if that's a possibility, then why would invasion still seem likely?
It might be that because if Nigeria is supposed to play a certain role in projecting like American dominance in sub-Saharan Africa, or maybe in Africa or Western Africa, whatever, and it is not rising up to that occasion, or even to a point where it is allowing other world players come slip in between its, the crack of its fingers to come and establish their own dominance, then it might be like an almost mortal threat to the American presence in this part of Africa. So if we have a Nigeria that is not serving that role, or you have a government that cares so much about the internal affairs rather than securing maybe American dominance, then the government is not useful for our African command or whatever money we're spending there. We can then have maybe one that we maybe install and will be favorable to both Western interests and American dominance in this sphere of Africa. That's also a possibility in that line, because Nigeria not playing ball with that Mali and ECOWAS thing will have been a great disappointment to American military interest. That would have been a great move.
That's a good point too, because America is at this point trying to distinguish its interest from a general Western interest.
Oh my God.
For instance, exactly, because America is now like, look, the EU, NATO, that's not our problem. America is our focus right now. Under Trump. So even if Tinubu has a generic welcoming attitude towards the West, which in a way, France seems to be the main beneficiary of to capital, you can still see a situation where, from the point of view of the people in the White House, that's just not good enough. Megan, you want to comment on this White House tea leaf reading? What is really at stake here for the US?
So let me try and build on what I think I know. And thanks to the way that you framed that last question, especially from the U.S. foreign policy point of view. I don't think, and I think that there's literature to back this up, that the U.S. foreign policy is knee-jerk, and I don't expect that it is different under Trump. A lot of what really informs U.S. foreign policy is dependent on the size, population, and influence of migrants of countries that are at the receiving end of that turn out to be at the receiving end of their foreign of that foreign policy, and which is why you see that sometimes the Jews have quite a bit of influence on American foreign policy.
Okay, I think you mean Israelis, by the way.
Oh, sorry, Israelis. Yeah, That's what I was supposed. That's what I meant. Yeah. But having said that, over the years, Nigeria has grown, or there has grown, in the US, a sizable Nigerian population. I don't need the numbers, the hard numbers, to imagine that population is largely Christian. But then Christian from all parts of Nigeria, in terms of geopolitical zones, right? But what we do know for a fact is that there was a push for this sanction, to get Nigeria on the list. The what's it called now?
The countries of particular concern.
Of countries of particular concern list, and that a lot of that push came from, organizations that have skin in the game when it comes to insecurity in what is today known as the Nigerian Middle Belt, and that at the center of the U.S. decision, to include Nigeria on that list, on that the Trump administration, is part of this Reverend Father, who's I think the Reverend Father, or the priest, who's been also at the forefront. So it's a kind of so you can see that there were people who were Nigerians who then pushed for this, and did the legwork, and it's not something that had just started today. So it's something, So the point I'm trying to make.
But listen, the example of like the Israel lobby in the US that you made reference to is one where which is grounded not only in ideology in the Republican Party and even in the Democratic Party of support for Israel. But it's also grounded in material reality, where AIPAC is one of the biggest donors to political campaigns, both Democrat and Republican, among other lobbies, among foreign policy lobbies. So those interests, the material and the ideological, seem to align with Israel. Is there much of a material basis to this if you're suggesting that a Nigeria lobby of some sort, Nigeria Christian lobby has developed and has been pushing this case, I mean, why would they have this much impact?
There's no way to answer that question without going back to resource. What kinds of resources are buried under the ground in large swath of the middle belt, but I don't. So I'm saying this, and I don't want to go into a conversation that I have no idea about. What's on the table for the U.S. Senators that have been lobbied, to get this up, to the level of the White House.
Right.
So I don't. So like I said, I don't know what's on the table. What I do know is that the Middle Belt region of Nigeria houses some of Nigeria's richest and untapped, resources. Some of these things are now beginning, to get. So there's also a big push within the Tinubu administration to reform the Nigerian mining industry, mining and so not oil now, not oil and gas, just maybe. So and then this whole geopolitics of tariffs with China, rare earths. Now I don't know how all of this plays into the geopolitics of what's beginning to unfold.
But it's fair to say that that's part of the discussion. That a lot of people have pointed out that Nigeria's rare earth minerals are something that would be of interest to the Trump administration, and it's clearly something that's of interest to Chinese investors who are heavily invested in lithium mining, mining other kinds of minerals that will eventually or could be or are already being used in so-called green energy construction, green energy manufacturing. I mean, that's, so without going into too, it's clear that that's already part of the discussion. That some analysts are saying that this is undoubtedly a factor in the US's new level of interest in Nigeria.
Yeah, I mean, it is, if you understand, the history of world imperialism, and I think it was you, or was it Uji who also mentioned the Tinubu romance with France. It all boils down to the same thing. Cutting deals, trying to get big capital to come and invest in sectors here where they can take the resources out of the ground and then ship them back to the metropoles to refine. So it's basically the same thing. And if you understand the political economy in which Nigeria presently is, and you would know that beyond all the noise about raising reserves and all of that, that there's still a large hole in Nigeria's on Nigeria's physical side, in terms of not, so a lot of what makes up for this is that when they realize statistics, what's happening on the monetary side, right? But in terms of the physical side, there's a gaping hole. You can't even fund budgets here. We're at a point in Nigerian history where maybe 2, even maybe 3 budgets are running concurrently. So, at the end of the day, the country needs money. But having said that, really, all of this comes to naught for me personally if the government can just rise up to the occasion of securing the lives and properties of its people. If that's priority, all of the funds that they're expending on trying to put up a PR face is something that could have gone, right into trying to sort out the low-hanging fruits. I understand that, securing a country as big as Nigeria is a massive and a Herculean task, but you not even show any efforts. So I don't know. I know I've rambled, but I don't know if that even gets to the meat. Anything that...
No, it does. And raises some interesting points, which I think we should come back to in terms of the government's response and also in terms of what the government can do in the midst of having this fiscal crisis that it's in. If the government has no money, then maybe it thinks PR is cheaper than structural transformation in the countryside. But let's come back to that in a bit. I mean, I think the other element of this that has been really fascinating to me, I wonder how you folks digested this, is the clamor for U.S. intervention amongst a certain segment of Nigerian populace. Frankly, it's been quite fascinating to see people, quite a large stretch of the commentariat, at least online, warm up to the idea that the US could step in some ways, invade. In fact, I think you will see, if you're paying attention to Nigerian Twitter or Nigerian discourse generally, you'll see that there's quite a fair bit of support for the threat. Where do you think that comes from? Is that, of course, naturally there are fault lines in Nigeria. There is a Christian population that has experienced violence. There's a Muslim population that's experienced violence. So you would expect that some folks in the Christian population will appreciate the recognition that the US seems to be granting. But going as far as to welcome an invasion is, I think, maybe beyond what might have been expected. So has that, anyway, I mean, I guess the point is, I've been surprised by that. Has it surprised you folks? And I mean, how do you make sense of it?
No, not really. One, there's we need to go into that group of people a bit. Yeah. Some of them are abroad.
Right.
So when the bombs start raining from the sky or whatever violence happens on the ground, they are far away from it, thousands of miles away from it.
Right.
Two, in the Nigerian psyche, I think we always feel like we are special than other African countries, especially maybe due to our ability to internalize Western or Afro-European outlook and ways of doing things, Right. Because how do you think that when the bombs start raining, it's going to distinguish between you and the other people that you're pointing at? Or do you think that when they go into so and so country, they start, when the guns start firing, they start distinguishing? It becomes hell for everybody.
The US is smart. The US knows who is behind terrorism. So when they come, they're going to be able to sift through. That's the kind of perspective you get. Right? So anyway, sorry to interrupt. I've just
no problem.
Right.
So these are layers of people that think. Layer 1, layer 2, then layer 3 are people that just feel like, well, we know the Google benefit anything from the country. If the Google can make everybody Google,
right.
It will be considerably worse than that because it then becomes an all-out war zone. It's looking like it a bit because we have pockets of violence here, killing here, but then it just becomes totally like there's fire in your face now, can you even guarantee that these people are going to play, moral when they start bombing you up, using some weapons that might have long-lasting effects? Who knows? You can't tell how they engage, so we have to be careful.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, Maggie, your take on this. How would you explain the welcoming of the US that we've observed in some circles?
I mean, it's borderline ignorance, or a mix of both ignorance and stupidity. But,
right.
I don't bother myself with people like that, too. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's either they don't know anything of the history of US interventions in sovereign states, either historically or even recently. So I don't know if I want to tell those kinds of people. It's irritating to hear them talk, sometimes, but what can you do? Because they don't even think about things in terms of proportion, you do what? You US invades Nigeria and then causes a humanitarian crisis of proportions that probably haven't been witnessed in the last maybe 2 or 3 centuries, or maybe yeah. I mean, because this is not even it's not even like Nigeria during the Civil War. I mean, because the size of the population isn't basically the same thing. It's probably tripled in that time. So you're asking just ordinary Boko Haram, internally, already having IDPs. You're even having spillover effects into countries that border you. So you haven't thought of. I mean, these guys haven't paid any mind to the human catastrophe, and especially because this is an occupying force that hasn't had any notable success in intervening, in domestic issues of any country and leaving it, the better for it. So that's, I think the fairest thing I can say is that it must be like a mix of stupidity and, rank ignorance for anybody to think that a U.S. invasion solves anything.
Well, and then maybe also some nihilism, as OAG has alluded to, where some people are like, look, make this Nigeria cuckoo's Gata set, because I mean, how much worse can it get, kind of thing. They're like,
for Nigeria to scatter. There are ways for Nigeria to scatter that doesn't involve U.S. intervention.
But from their perspective, this is the most likely way. This option is now on the table.
Since election no do government officials no fit do cuckoo maybe now outside.
Boko Haram themselves have failed to do it comprehensively. So I think that is, we shouldn't underestimate the extent to which that's play, because I think if you talk to the average Nigerian about, correct me if I'm wrong here, right? But I think the average Nigerian will be broadly aware that like Libya is not better off thanks to the US intervention and NATO intervention, and Iraq and Afghanistan. Like if you say these names in Nigeria, people are broadly aware that things haven't panned out after the US invaded. So if despite that awareness, people still say, it's fine, let them even come. There might be an element of nihilism at play, or nihilism, however you pronounce it, at play, where they're like, in fact, it's fine, let this project come to a befitting close. What do you think? I mean, is that unfair to say? Isn't that part of the mix here?
Yeah, I mean, that's me agreeing to you on that score would mean negating my own theory that it's rank ignorance. I mean, I don't think that the average Nigerian knows even what. I don't even know that they know that part of, the insecurity challenge that Nigeria faces is as a result of the US's own handling of events in Libya, and the spill over. I mean, I think that kind of conversation, basically happens within the realms of the kind of conversations that you and I and OAG are having. Conversations that probably happen within maybe within 5% of Nigeria. I don't think that people know this. Because if you know that, then why would you? I mean, if you know the history of U.S. intervention, especially in Libya here, and that it is, the fallout of that, that's what we have been dealing with. Yeah, because I mean, Gaddafi had a way to rein in some, the dissidents in and not to go into that, but. I don't think that. I think that the people, no matter how educated they might seem to be or that they live abroad, I just think that they're ignorant. Yeah. And I know enough to know that Nigerians don't even know much about, their surrounds. So, they're almost like Americans in that sense.
Right.
So,
yeah. No, that's fair. I mean, maybe it's a mix, right? But I can't deny that ignorance plays some role in it.
Yeah, maybe the number of people who that fits. The people who are knowledgeable, who are like what you said, who are outside the country. But if you're outside the country, you don't get family.
No, but there are people even within. There are even people within Mega who are in the discourse chambers, right? Like, haven't you seen the folks like online, for instance, who in theory you would expect even some people like oppositional kinds of people who you would expect to have some basic awareness of recent world events.
Yeah, except those people are tribalists, closet one, because I think sometimes what informs that kind of talk, stupid talk really, is that it's a northern thing. The problem now for north today, middle. So if you stop them from north, you're not going to affect middle belt,
No, right. You can build a wall between the middle belt.
So you get all sorts of those kinds of mentality, right? Especially when you now start to disaggregate the kinds of insecurity, Boko Haram from bandits, and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, because a lot of Nigerians think, it's another problem, in fact, sometimes they will even tell you that why it's happening in Kwara is because of the Muslim, Islam. It's all sorts of nonsense, to be honest. But when it happened, everybody will agree, so it's for me, I don't even want to make excuses for these kinds of people. Safety. And I agree because they want, because why would you want an invasion? To prove what? That you are right?
Yeah, I think that's one motivation, because it's true that politics has become filtered through this online algorithmic ecosystem. It's become so about position taking without substance that, in fact, an invasion to prove certain people were right online would probably be welcomed by those people. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I think that really is a factor, as sad as it is to admit.
Let me tell you guys something that I don't know if it will be shocking to you. So I stumbled on this. I think it's a Nigerian startup, that has developed an app. So I think it's called Go Wager, right? It's kind of a response to what the Americans call, poly market. So it's like a marketplace of opinions where people can then bet on their opinions, right? So something like will Kefas decamp, so you can bet on that, right? So it's not. I'm not giving you like it's there. It's on the app. I've seen it, and. But I stumbled on this one that says, "Will America invade Nigeria before?" I think maybe before April 2026. And some people are taking this bet. And
do you know the percentages? What percentage think that America?
The percentage is there. So when you and it's almost like you're buying shares. So it's taking the.
No, but do you have a sense of what percent does the majority think America will intervene?
Okay, just allow me so that I don't guess. I'll send it to you.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, interesting.
Look for that. Yeah,
we
so
can
I'm just saying, I raised that.
Share the link.
Yeah, so I raised that. Yeah, I raised that to say that you're right. I think there are a lot of depraved human beings in this country. Because why would that? I don't know. Maybe there's a way to rationalize it, but it just doesn't make any sense to me, why you think that America. So, the only way to justify this is to say, this idea that America is superior,
right.
This godlike fantasizing of what American powers actually is, and that maybe there's a bit of naivety to think that there'll be no collateral damage for an event such as that.
I think you're onto something here, Meg. I think even going beyond the nihilism I was suggesting earlier, I think there's also a kind of wish fulfillment kind of thing, or fantasy projection of like omnipotence on America. And it has a history that has manifested in other kinds of hero worship in Nigeria, where people think that someone can flip a light switch and fix the problems of the country, and maybe that someone happens to be Trump for the moment.
That big brother syndrome.
Demographic, exactly.
That's always been the thinking. That strong man, one person should come and fix it, type of thing. And not to knock our religious people off, but Messiah, God,
right?
Jesus.
That's why we got Buhari in the first place.
Yes. So that's where I'm going to. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So we always have that mentality of say, make person just come help us do something, fix them. So that even trickles to the political arena, where to self-organize, self-mobilize, know that you are the one that's going to fix this thing. It's not there. Yeah. But just hoping, saying that one person, one action man, the watch superhero, this thing with triumphant music, do person will go wear cape. Nobody's coming to fix anything. Anyway.
Yeah.
So
I think you have been binge watching superhero movies recently.
I don't know if to watch about just draw the analogies. That's what
The notion of action man. Honestly, if you had Action Man Party, AMP, I think you could do very well in a Nigerian election. Just in parts of action. I mean,
actual group. You don't be there, almost there.
And I be APC, okay, not even be APC, but I mean,
but elements of that have been recycled or digested into APC. But look, I mean, as we try to bring this to some kind of close, I would say that this is part of why I'm not entirely pessimistic about the prospects of a U.S. invasion. In other words, I doubt it would happen. And I think America was moving in this direction too when you're talking about U.S. foreign policy establishment. I just kind of feel that like the bureaucrats who would have to implement any decision from Trump are a bit more enlightened about the situation in Nigeria. I think they're more aware. Like if you read this sort of reports on Nigeria from any given U.S. government agency or any of the influential think tanks, with few exceptions, of the past few years, they are aware how complicated. At least they have some awareness of the complex nature of insecurity in Nigeria. Right, that there is no single place you can bomb or single place you can land troops that will address the problem. I think they seem to demonstrate some awareness of the layers. Yeah, they seem to know that. So those are the people who will need to implement. Those are the people who will need to actually design. Trump says go. Those are the people who need to kind of define what go means. And given that layer of the bureaucracy exists and have to make decisions in this context, it makes me feel like the invasion desired by the pro-invasion camp is very unlikely to happen, as well as the sort of, if there's any kind of group of imperialists who are just like, let's land there and grab resources, I think they're very likely to be quite disappointed as well, because it's much harder in practice to do. I mean, what would that really mean? Are they going to land in Jos, in Plateau State? Then what happens in Kwara or Borno? The point being that, like when it comes around, when you try to imagine what implementation will look like from the perspective of a bureaucrat, it seems quite impossible to imagine. And that's part of why I think that the likelihood is actually less than it might appear based on the discourse and then Nicki Minaj's intervention. I don't know, Sha. That's just what it looks like to me.
Sorry. This is. I hope this is not a distraction. So I've just gone on the app and I've seen one. Will you so we can hold a media chat before November 22, 2005?
That's pretty funny.
And people will place bets on that.
100%.
I swear that.
No, but how about the US invasion one? Is there?
I'll send it to you.
Yeah. No, really curious about the percentages.
And that one already has 520 trades, bro. Do you understand?
Right.
People have 520 people are interested in that question. Please get bets for that.
Sure. That is but you can't see the bets, the percentages of the bets.
No, you can just say what the total value of the bets are. So
I see.
That's it's 80,000 naira. Yeah.
I don't know. I probably bet that invasion is unlikely. And then for some of the other reasons we've discussed, leaving aside difficulty from the point of view of US Pentagon people, State Department people, and actually coming to terms with where to land your chopper. I think the other problem is that, broadly speaking, it doesn't look like the US public is like pro boots on the ground at the moment, right?
Yeah, definitely not. Mm-hmm.
They're kind of fed up with that. So
you're not gonna sell it to the American people. So that's probably why it's a hard sell. You're going, with people's money.
So that's the complex thing. Whereas if the US had been like, we're going to deploy drones to attack bandit camps, the Nigerian government would probably give them a round of applause for that, right? Because they would love for somebody else to come and do that for them, and also any contracting that might fall from the table as a result of that, etc. So I don't know. Because of this, it just seems like it's a kind of tackle thing. And also keep in mind this similar kind of push and pull played out with South Africa as well, with the supposed white genocide of Afrikaners.
And that one, Elon Musk, go start that one.
Right, but similarly, it didn't lead to any US action besides shouting matches and then probably some deals behind the scenes. So I don't know. This is comforting to OEJ, but that's just kind of
hopefully it's for the best, so not to make nothing happen. So
Yeah. So OEJ, I hope you can sleep a little better tonight.
Yeah, hopefully.
Without dreaming of Marines landing in a
carrier group. The Gulf of Guinea.
Carrier group moving into Magodo.
Bite of Benin.
Yeah. Anyway. But intrigued by what the listeners think. What do you folks think? Are we being naive, or are we being overly worried about the prospects? What do you think?
Are we running speed?
Are we running
in popular Nigerian parlance? They run speed.
Should we pack well?